Woo! Brand new firmware updates, guys, for the X Pro 2 and the X-T2. It's a brand new video, and I just woke up and my hair looks like this, and coffee. Anyway, guys, it's raining outside, and I kind of want to take my camera out and try out the new firmware, but I think I'm just going to do some tests around the house here, and I might go out later, I'm not sure. Yeah, Fujifilm this morning launched the new firmware as they promised, and it brings 30 new features to the X-T2 and a bunch of new features to the X Pro 2. X Pro 2 is now up to version 3 firmware, and this brings the X-T2 up to version 2. So I'm not going to go through every single test on the new firmware updates, but I'm going to go through a bunch of new stuff, and just looking here on the site before I actually download it, looking at some of the new things, you can now extend the ISO to 125 and 160. Before, I think it just went down to 100. That was as low as you could go, and you couldn't change anything, so it was basically just 100 or back up to native 200. You can do programmable long exposures up to 15 minutes. We now have the option to change the ISO with the command dial instead of actually using the dial at the front, so that'll speed up some workflow, so I won't actually have to bring my hands off the camera. I can just work it from the command dials. There's faster face detection, enables the use of phase detection autofocus for face detection. I didn't know that that wasn't a thing already, so we'll have to try that out today. We've got some improvements in the continuous autofocus. It reduces hunting, making it easier for tracking subjects, so the autofocus tracking was already pretty good, so we'll have to try that out as well. The next thing that's pretty cool is you can actually change the focus point for your single point autofocus down to like basically the size of one of those little tiny squares. And now there's 6 different settings to be able to change your single point autofocus. And it's going to be awesome having it really small like that. I'm definitely going to leave it like that because that's what I was used to coming from Canon. Like the 5D Mark II or the 5D Mark III, they all had a smaller autofocus point, and it was really easy to just line it up with the eye and take the shot. The activation of the eye sensor in video recording. Basically the way it is right now is when you hit record, if you're looking through the EVF, it stays on the EVF until you stop recording, or vice versa with the LCD. So now it looks like you can switch between both while recording. So we'll have to take a look at that. Now we can change ISO during video. So that's something that was one of my cons list when I did my X-T2 review. I'm going to download this firmware, put it on the camera, and go out and do some tests. So let's do it. So the first test I did is continuous autofocus with face detection because they've upgraded that now with phase detection. And unfortunately I was shooting in uncompressed RAW and not in boost mode, but you can see here it tracked really nicely. I did about 4 passes with her, and I just want to say thanks to Chiara for helping me out. Then I switched over to JPEG and I was able to get a lot more shots off. As you can see, it's tracking really awesome. And this is a test in continuous autofocus in video, and as you can see here, it's working amazing. And this is with the 50 to 140 f2.8. So one of the new features that they added while recording video is being able to adjust the ISO, which is clearly working here, which didn't work on the old firmware. And one of the things that I said in my review that was kind of annoying, right now I just have continuous autofocus set to the middle point. There's also all the custom autofocus settings in video as well now. Okay, so one of the cool new features is voice memos, and basically you just go to your playback, and on your image here you just go to the menu. And you go down to the second page where it says voice memo settings. It's going to be default off, so you want to turn that on. And basically we'll go back to the play here. And in order to add a voice memo to this photo, you hold down the front command dial for about 4 seconds until it starts recording, but you continue to hold it down while you do your voice memo, and then you let off when you're done. So I'm going to hold it down for 4 seconds. And as you can see, it's recording now, and you get 30 seconds. So I don't really like this photo. It's a bad crop. And once you're done, you just let off the command dial and it saves it. And then in order to play this back, you just tap the front command dial once. And as you can see, it's recording now, and you get 30 seconds. So I don't really like this photo. It's a bad crop. Once you're done, you just let Anyway, that was really quiet because I don't have the volume turned up on the camera, but that's how you do voice memos. So basically the voice memo saved as the same name as the JPEG. It's just a WAV file right beside it. And as you can see, it's recording now and you get 30 seconds. So I don't really like this photo. It's a bad crop. Once you're done. And the file size for that little clip was roughly around 1 megabyte, so it's not too big. Alright, so the next option we have, which is pretty cool to have added to this camera, is being able to use the front command dial for ISO. And basically you go into the menu, and you go down to the wrench, and then go to button and dial settings. And then right when you get to ISO dial setting, which says auto, you can change that to command. And now when you set the top of the camera to auto, you can use the command dial to change the ISO. So that's pretty nice to have. It'll speed up workflow a lot more. So another feature they added to the camera is having a live histogram and video. So you basically have to go down to the wrench, screen setup, display custom setting, and turn histogram on. And then you now have a live histogram in the bottom corner, and we can hit record, and you can see we have a live histogram. So as I stated at the start of the video, you can actually adjust your autofocus point down to one of these small boxes, which is really awesome. So now you have roughly 5 to 6 different options to change your autofocus point to. This is the Rode Video Micro on top of the X-T2. This is the shotgun mic I usually use on my Sony a6300. I don't really like the sound of the preamp in the X-T2, so I don't know how this is going to sound. Maybe the update fixed it, but I'll let you be the judge. Let's listen to the noise floor and see if there's any hiss. That could be coming from the image stabilization off the lens. Let me turn it off. I don't know. So this next feature I actually saw in the GFX, but you can change your autofocus mode orientation. And based off if you're landscape or portrait, you can set different focus points so that when you go to portrait and landscape, I'll show you what happens here. So right now, if you want to shoot your landscape shot like this, you set your focus point there. Then when you go to portrait, that autofocus point used to always stay back where you had it set for landscape, but now you can actually set it to where you want it for portrait shots, so like this. And then when you go back, your autofocus point is back to where you had it in landscape. Alright, so these new firmware updates are awesome, and I don't know what other camera company is doing this kind of thing where they just drop a bomb like that and turn your camera even better than it was when it was already awesome. And the new face detection actually seemed to work way better at tracking for my tests, and I don't remember it working that well, and it's working really awesome. ISO, being able to change that while you're recording video, that should have been something that was already in the camera, but it's awesome that it's added now. And the other feature that I thought was really cool that they added was being able to change the ISO from the front command dial, and then you've got voice memos and things like that. So obviously you've seen from my tests, I didn't go through everything. There's still other things like bracketing and a few other options that have to deal with bracketing. I don't do a lot of photography like that. I'm sure there's a lot of reviews out there that are going to show the new bracketing setup. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice, and I'll see you in the next one.